Why is Tom Holland's entire thesis basically wrong that we owe pretty much everything good to Christianity?
Yeah. There's a lot of good material on this. I've written about it, of course. People can go to my blog and see the full detailed list with hyperlinks and everything. You can go into it. But the bottom line is that he's making two fundamental mistakes. First, he's not actually looking at the ancient context. So almost all of the stuff that he's talking about, all the stuff he's talking about falls into two camps. One is stuff that we already had before the Christians came along. And then the Christians came along and got rid of it or forgot. And then 1,000 years later, the Renaissance is the rebirth of knowledge of the pagan stuff. And then it comes back. A democracy is a perfect example. Like, Christians did not invent democracy. Democracy is not in the Bible, not in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament. No, it's totally pagan. It was invented by pagans hundreds of years before Christianity. And then Christians got rid of it. And not to be fair, like, the pagans also got rid of it through fascism. But the Christians then inherited that fascist rule and never brought democracy back until for about 1,000+ years later. But what they got is they got the idea back from the pagans and then started selling it. Hey, democracy, it's a great idea. But they weren't able to sell it as an idea that's in the Bible. Jesus doesn't say democracy is a great idea, never describes it or anything like that. Doesn't describe human rights. Human rights are not in the Bible. The concept is not there. That concept comes from Stoicism. Even the exact word, like human rights or natural rights, that's from pre-Christian Stoic philosophy. Pagans, right? So pagans invented all this, Christians forgot about it, and then when the Christians recovered the pagan knowledge, then it became popular again, and so on. So you can't credit Christianity with that, right? In fact, there was a lot of Christian opposition to these ideas. So that's one half. The other half of the problem is there are things that you can't actually connect to Christianity. So like the scientific revolution, that's actually a recovery, again, of the pagan stuff. The laws of war, so like the United Nations, basically think of like the United Nations entire charter, and their concept of human rights and their concept of the laws of war and stuff. All of that developed out of secular philosophical thinking. It doesn't come from the Bible. It doesn't come from Christianity. People would have arrived at it without that, and we know this because China did it. So China never had industrial slavery. Their economy never relied on slavery. Never, not for thousands and thousands of years. And China also had like the laws of war that it took us until the 20th century to develop. They had the same concept of like civilians are not legitimate targets of war.
China also had versions of like the Golden Rule, like Confucianism.
Oh yeah, yes,
and
absolutely.
It's pretty much everywhere.
That's right.
It's something you can basically derive from human interaction.